Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe, it helps me create more stories for you. And in the comments, let me know what city or country you're listening from. She adjusted her necklace like it was the most important thing in the world. That's the first thing I noticed when I sat down. Not the dress, which was black, of course, always black when she wanted to feel untouchable. Not the smile, which flickered across her face like a default setting. Not real. It was the necklace. She hadn't worn it in over a year. I gave it to her on our 5th anniversary. Back when we still bought each other things for reasons other than guilt or habit. She wore it tonight like it was armor. I wasn't sure you'd show, she said casually, glancing at the wine list without actually reading it. I said I'd be here. And you're always so reliable. Her tone was neutral, but there was weight behind it. Familiar weight. That particular type of mockery that masquerades as admiration. The waiter came by, young, professional, slightly overtrained. She ordered a bottle of something expensive. I didn't stop her. Why would I? The restaurant was exactly as I remembered, intimate, quiet, full of white linen and people pretending their lives were still worth dressing up for. I picked it for that reason. The illusion of peace. We'd been here twice before. The first time, she said the soufflé made her believe in God again. The second time, she barely touched her plate. This would be the last. She poured the wine herself when it arrived, filling both glasses. No cheers. No toasts. She sipped, then set the glass down with a faint click and finally looked at me directly. I'm not going to pretend, she said. You should know that now. I didn't expect you to. I'm also not going to lie. I know how much you hate that. She said it with that voice, measured, matter-of-fact, as if she were giving a quarterly update at a board meeting. That was always her strength. Make it sound like a decision made long ago by someone else. I've been seeing him for about 6 months. A little more, maybe. I don't know exactly when it started. It wasn't like a switch flipped. I didn't speak. She took another sip and continued. It started out emotional, if that helps. Talking, texting. Then, she watched my face. Waited. Measured the silence. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. Not even angry? No. She tilted her head slightly. You always were hard to read. I nodded. That's true. For a moment, I thought she might stop. Let the moment hang. But she wasn't done. I don't feel guilty, she added. That one wasn't for me, it was for her. She needed to hear it out loud. To believe it. I let it settle in the air. Let her hear her own sentence echo back. I believe you, I said. That made her pause. She blinked, once. Smoothed her hair behind her ear. Glanced around the room like she was trying to recenter herself in the script she thought we were following. I thought you'd have questions. I don't. Not even, why? No. She laughed, quiet but sharp. You're really going to sit there and let me say all this without reacting? I'm listening, I said. You're talking. That's what this dinner was for. Another blank. She was losing rhythm. I've seen her like this before, during charity galas, high-stakes meetings, any time she felt the thread of control slip through her fingers. She gets quieter. Meaner. More precise. I was unhappy, she said. I felt invisible. I know. You made me feel like a roommate. Not a wife. I'm aware. You're still not going to say anything? I already have, I said. Just not yet. That earned a longer pause. She studied me now. Really studied me. There was a look in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. Uncertainty. I don't know what game you think you're playing, she said. And the first trace of heat bled into her tone. No game, I said, calmly folding my napkin. I brought you here so you'd be comfortable when you said it. That was important to you. When I said what? That you cheated. That you don't regret it. That you felt nothing while doing it. Her lips parted slightly. You needed to feel powerful, I continued. I wanted to give you space to do that. To have the wine. Say your piece. Hold your posture. What is this? She asked, trying to scoff, but the edge wasn't there anymore. Some kind of passive-aggressive performance? No. This is acknowledgement, I said. And closure. For you. For both of us. She pushed her chair back slightly, arms folding across her chest. If you think this changes anything. I interrupted. Not loudly. Just finally. I don't need it to change anything. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope. Plain. Heavy. Unlabeled. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. What's that? You'll find out. Later. She reached for it. I pulled it back half an inch. Not here. She let her hand drop, visibly irritated now. The performance was slipping. You're being dramatic. No, I said, standing. I'm being efficient. She looked around. You're walking out? Yes. After everything I said? Exactly because of it. I left the envelope on her bread plate. Read it at home, I said. And remember how quiet tonight was. How controlled. She didn't speak as I turned and walked away, but I felt her eyes burning into the back of my jacket. Let her drink the wine. Let her sit in the glow of the chandeliers she used to love. Let her think she still understands what this is. Because by dawn, she won't be wondering if she went too far. She'll be wishing she stopped before the first lie ever left her mouth. And I'll be somewhere else, sleeping peacefully. For the first time in years. I wish I could say I saw it coming all at once. That there was a single moment, a dramatic shift, where everything in me screamed something was wrong. That would have made things easier, cleaner. But the truth is, it happened the way marriages die when no one's looking, quietly, slowly, one small betrayal at a time. It started with distance. Not the kind you can measure in steps or miles, but the kind that shows up in the spaces between your sentences. In the, I'm tired, instead of good night. In how she stopped sending me texts during the day, not because she was too busy, but because she stopped thinking about me at all. The intimacy faded like an old photograph left in the sun too long. We still touched. We still kissed. But there was no weight to it anymore. No presence. She started pulling away when I reached for her in bed. Said she was exhausted. Too much on her mind. That was new. Before, even when things were hard, she'd still rest her head against my shoulder. Not anymore. I tried to give her space at first. Told myself she was just stressed. Told myself it was just a rough patch, that it would pass. But something kept gnawing at the edge of that lie. A sharp little tooth that wouldn't let go. I remember the night I started keeping track. She came home late from working out. Her hair was dry. Her makeup was perfect. She smelled like perfume, not sweat. She brushed past me in the hallway without so much as a glance. I stared at her retreating figure and told myself to stop imagining things. The next morning, I logged into our shared phone plan. And that's when I found the first number. It was saved under a woman's name, one I didn't recognize. But the frequency stood out. Late nights, early mornings, dozens of texts in short bursts. I confronted her gently, told her I noticed she'd been distracted lately, asked if there was anything going on. She didn't get angry. That would have been easier. She just looked at me like I was a child asking too many questions. Don't start being one of those husbands, she said, casually tying her hair back into a knot. The insecure type. It's not attractive. That's when it shifted. That's when I knew something was rotting beneath the surface. Not just the affair. The rot had a name, gaslighting. I'd walk into a room mid-conversation and she'd go quiet. I'd ask what she was doing on her phone and she'd turn the screen away, habitually. Every attempt I made to connect became a test I failed. You're imagining things. You're paranoid. You used to be more confident. And just like that, it became my fault. My fault for being suspicious. My fault for noticing her detachment. My fault for asking where she was when she didn't answer her phone for 4 hours. Her tone changed, too. No more softness. Everything had an edge now. Even her compliments felt condescending, offered like participation trophies. There was one night I'll never forget. We were at a dinner with her family. Her mother asked if we were planning to take a vacation. I said we'd been talking about it. Maybe Mexico, maybe Italy if work stayed light. Marissa laughed, dry and sharp. You've been talking about it, she said. I'm still deciding if I want to be seen with you on a beach. Everyone laughed. Her mother, her sister, even her dad smiled like it was a harmless joke. I didn't laugh, and nobody noticed. After that night, I stopped defending myself. Not because I believed her, but because I realized the defense didn't matter. The story had already been written. I was the dull husband, the safe choice, the soft man she'd outgrown. She started spending more time with her friend Lauren again. They'd gone quiet for about a year, but now she was suddenly over at Lauren's place all the time. Always overnight. Always with vague explanations. Wine and catching up. Movie night. I didn't say a word. I waited. Then one afternoon, a week before her birthday, I got a call from Lauren. Her voice was tight, hesitant. Look, she said. I know I'm probably stepping out of bounds here, but I thought you should know something. She didn't give details. She didn't have to. The tone said enough. The tension. The way her voice shook before she added. She's not who you think she is right now. I thanked her. Hung up. And for the first time in months, I felt still. That night, I sat in bed while Marissa got ready in the bathroom. She came out wrapped in a towel, glanced at me, and said, Try not to wait up, okay?" I nodded. And the moment the door closed behind her, I opened a folder I'd been keeping on my laptop. A quiet little file titled Contingency. It had screenshots, phone records, bank charges, a saved version of our prenup. Notes. That was the night I stopped grieving the woman I married. She wasn't coming back, and I had no intention of following her into whatever version of hell she'd chosen. But I would wait. Wait until she believed she'd won. And then I'd show her what it looks like when the person you underestimated stops being the quiet one. It's one thing to suspect. It's another to know. There's a moment, a terrible, perfect moment, when your gut is finally proven right. When all the small, explainable things you've tucked into the corners of your mind line up in a way you can no longer ignore. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday. It started with a call. Lauren again. I hadn't asked her to get involved. In fact, after her last call, I assumed that was the end of it. Just a concerned whisper into the wind before she stepped out of the line of fire. But she called back. "I think I can get you proof," she said. She didn't sound heroic, just tired. There was guilt in her voice, though I didn't ask why. Maybe it was because she'd covered for Marissa in the past. Maybe it was because she saw now what Marissa had become and didn't like the reflection staring back at her. Either way, I listened. They'd made plans to go out Friday. A girls' night at some rooftop bar with live music and overpriced cocktails. Lauren told me where and when. Told me Marissa was meeting someone there. Not her. I thanked her. Asked for nothing more. She offered anyway. "I'll text you if I see him," she said. "You'll know for sure." That was all I needed. Still, I didn't wait for the text. I went myself. Not inside the bar. She would have spotted me. But across the street, tucked in the shadows near a florist that had already closed for the night. I wore a hat. Watched from behind tinted windows. She arrived first. Hair curled. Red lipstick. Bold, deliberate. A dress I'd never seen before. Not the kind you wear with friends. The kind you wear when you want to be noticed. He showed up 11 minutes later. Tall. Smug. I recognized him instantly. Derek. We'd met once. Briefly. Back when he worked for a real estate firm that Marissa consulted for. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. Smiled like he already knew something I didn't. Apparently, he did. They didn't sit at the bar. They didn't bother with drinks. Just walked straight to the elevator and disappeared upstairs, to the private level. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. When the text from Lauren came, I already knew what it would say. "He's here." She included a picture. The two of them, laughing at a corner table, his hand on her thigh under the white linen. Her head thrown back, mouth open in that laugh she used to reserve for me. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because it surprised me, but because of how natural it looked. Like this was who she really was now. Maybe who she'd always been. I didn't get angry. I didn't throw the phone or curse her name. I just stared. Then I saved the image into a folder I'd been building for months. The next day, I took off work and drove to an attorney's office downtown. Not just any attorney, one who specialized in clean exits, a term I found both amusing and appropriate. We sat down. I laid out what I had. Screenshots, texts, phone records, credit card charges, the photo. He nodded through most of it, silent and clinical. At the end of our meeting, he said, "You've got her pinned 9 ways from Sunday. We'll make this surgical." That word again. Surgical. I like that. From there, it became method. I had her phone cloned without her knowing. Lauren helped. Another girls' night gave us the window. The clone gave me access to everything. Texts, call logs, GPS. I didn't read it all. Some of it I couldn't stomach, but I read enough. There was one message that stuck with me. It was to Derek. He doesn't even see it. "I could sleep with you in our bed, and he'd still ask if I need anything before he leaves for work." I didn't react. I just screenshotted it and added it to the file. The truth wasn't painful anymore. It was data, information, coordinates in a war she didn't know I was fighting. She talked about me like I was a burden, an obstacle, a paycheck with shoes. She described our marriage as a dead branch she hadn't gotten around to pruning. Said she pitied me. Those were her words. Pity, not hate, not resentment. Pity. That's when I stopped feeling anything at all. At that point, I knew what had to come next. The only thing left was how. I wanted her to confess. Not because I needed it, but because I knew she needed to feel like she'd won. That was her weakness. She thought power came from admission without consequences, from saying the thing others wouldn't dare say out loud. So I gave her the stage. I messaged her on a Wednesday. Suggested dinner. Just us. A quiet place, old memories. Told her I wanted to talk. That I missed how we used to be. She said yes in under 5 minutes. Even added a smiley face. I picked the restaurant with precision. Made the reservation under her name. Ordered her favorite bottle of wine in advance. Asked for a corner table, soft lighting, somewhere quiet. She showed up dressed to win. She thought she already had. And I let her believe that, for one last night. The way she sipped her wine. The way she twisted her ring on her finger while she talked about her clarity. The way she smiled when she said, "I'd do it again." She thought that was the moment she reclaimed herself. She had no idea that moment had been mine all along. Because while she was dressing up for the scene she thought she controlled, I had already filed the paperwork, closed the joint accounts, changed the locks, delivered the dossier to her firm's HR inbox, sent a neatly packaged USB to Derek's wife, priority overnight. The dinner was just choreography, a place for her to monologue before the curtain fell. I didn't need her to know everything that night. I just needed her to speak the final line. I don't feel guilty. Perfect. I left her with the wine and the envelope, walked out to the quiet city street, and stood under the old street lamp where I first kissed her 15 years ago. Felt nothing. Took a breath. And smiled. Because the show was over. Now came the part she never rehearsed for. It was just after midnight when the first message hit her inbox. Not her personal email. Her work account. Subject line, client matter, urgent review needed. She wouldn't open it until morning, of course. That's when it would hit her. The PDF attachments. The chat logs. The screenshots of her bragging about milking the corporate card for her weekend rendezvous with Derek. The location tags. The spa receipts. The duplicate invoices submitted to the company for nights she spent in a suite downtown, not on-site, with vendors. There would be a meeting. HR, legal, probably someone from senior leadership. She wouldn't know it, but the complaint was filed under a pseudonym. Someone who'd seen something and wanted to protect the company. Someone who had access. Someone meticulous. Me. But that was just one part of the night. At 12:37 a.m., the second delivery arrived. Not an email this time. A package. A small white envelope slid into a suburban mailbox, sealed tightly, no return address. Inside, a USB drive, printed photos, and a note that read simply, "Thought you deserved the truth." It was addressed to Derek's wife. They'd just bought a house in the suburbs last spring. 2 kids. Lab retriever. Lawn that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. Now she had names. Dates. Locations. A few pictures of Derek and Marissa in the bar's rooftop lounge. Just enough to tell a story that couldn't be spun. And a contact number. Not mine. Lauren's. A friend she didn't know she had. By 1 a.m., the house was already different. The locks had been changed earlier that afternoon. Her key card disabled. A quiet locksmith with no questions and a cash envelope left on his dashboard. She wouldn't try to come home tonight. I knew that. She was still at the restaurant when the final pieces slid into place. Still sipping wine. Still believing, on some level, that she'd walk away from all this with the upper hand. Maybe a clean break. Maybe a few tears. But dignity intact. She'd feel it all start to shift around 7 a.m. when her badge didn't open the garage door. She'd text me first, I imagined. "Hey, is something wrong with the door?" Then maybe try calling. No answer. Then she'd try the office. "Just got a weird email. Do you know anything about this?" And later, when she tried to use the credit card at her favorite cafe, she'd be met with a shake of the head. Declined. Because the joint accounts were no longer joint. Because the credit cards had been canceled. Because her car was leased under my name and returned to the dealership by courier at exactly 6:15 a.m. I was staying at a rental apartment downtown. Bare bones, anonymous, quiet. I didn't need much. Just a place with silence. And distance. The divorce filing had been submitted at 11:58 p.m. electronically, with an affidavit that included enough evidence to ensure there would be no battle. Only terms. The file was airtight. Infidelity. Financial misconduct. Emotional cruelty. It wasn't vengeance. It was precision. At 2:43 a.m., I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. No adrenaline. No anger. Just stillness. I wasn't imagining her reaction. I didn't need to. I knew her too well. She'd rage first. Try to call. Demand an explanation. She might try to show up at the house. Find the locks changed. Her things boxed and waiting in storage. She'd go to Lauren next. Try to flip the narrative. Play victim. Cry betrayal. But Lauren wouldn't answer either. She'd already changed her number. By 4 a.m., Marissa would realize this wasn't an ambush. It was an execution. Not sudden. Not emotional. Methodical. Planned. Undeniable. Her emails would keep piling up. One from her boss asking for a conversation. One from HR with the subject line, "Review attached prior to meeting." The silence would close in fast. That's when the unraveling would begin. Not loud. Not dramatic. But internal. Like a bone breaking beneath the skin. Nothing visible, but impossible to ignore. She'd realized the power was gone. The leverage. The illusion. All of it. By 6 a.m., the sun would start to rise. And she'd know. Know that every smug word at that table, every smirk, every dismissive laugh, every time she said, "I'd do it again," had been spoken into a carefully built trap. I hadn't needed her to lie. I needed her to tell the truth. Because the truth is what destroys people like her. She built her house of mirrors on secrets and smirks and silence. All I had to do was shine a light. I got out of bed as the sky shifted from gray to blue and poured a cup of coffee. No sugar. No cream. From the window, I could see the city unfolding, buildings waking up, lights flicking on one by one. And I knew that somewhere across town, in a sleek kitchen she no longer owned, Marissa was staring at her phone, or her laptop, or her reflection, and seeing something she hadn't expected to find. Consequence. She showed up around 9:12 a.m. Not at the house, she'd already tried that. Not at my office. I'd resigned a week ago. A fact she'd missed, probably because she was too busy living her second life to notice what was happening in her first. She came to the rental. I heard the knock through the door. Not urgent. Just unsure. The kind of knock you give when you aren't sure if you belong there anymore. She rang the bell next. Once. Then again. Then a pause. Then the text started. "We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. Why are you doing this? Call me." I didn't answer. Just stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the building across the street. At 9:18, she tried calling. I declined it after 2 rings. At 9:22, she sent a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. By 9:30, she had stopped pretending to be confused. "You can't just disappear. You owe me an explanation. You're acting like a coward." I set the phone down and walked into the kitchen. There's something liberating about not needing to respond. About not needing to defend yourself to the person who destroyed you. She didn't want an explanation. She wanted a scene. Something dramatic. Something she could point to and say, "See? Look what he did. Look how irrational he is. Look how cold." She was looking for a new narrative. But there wasn't one left to write. By the time I opened the door, she was pacing in the hallway. Hair unbrushed. Shirt wrinkled. Still in last night's heels. Her makeup had worn off unevenly. For the first time in years, she looked real. Not polished. Not filtered. Just human. And desperate. Finally, she breathed, trying to compose herself. "I've been calling you all morning." I nodded once. Stepped aside. Let her walk in. The space was clean. Sparse. No pictures. No memories. Just a sofa, a coffee table, and 2 mugs. One full, one waiting. She sat automatically. Looked around like she might find answers hiding behind the bare walls. "What is all this?" she asked. "Why did you change the locks? Shut down the accounts? What did you send to my job?" I sat down across from her, hands resting loosely on my knees. "You know why. You ambushed me." I tilted my head. "You mean like the way you ambushed our marriage?" Her jaw clenched. "That's not fair. You blindsided me. I was honest at dinner. You should have said something then." I leaned back slightly. "I let you talk. I gave you the whole table. You poured the wine and played the part. I just watched the curtain fall." Her eyes flashed. "You're acting like you're above this." "I'm not," I said quietly. "I'm just done with it." She blinked, realizing, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't here to argue, that I hadn't invited her in for closure, or clarity, or one last fight. "I don't understand how you can be so," she paused, searching for the word, "cold. You said you didn't feel guilty." "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes," I interrupted, meeting her eyes. "You did." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I made a mistake." "No," I said. "You made a series of choices. They weren't mistakes. They were deliberate, calculated, repeated. I was unhappy. I know. I didn't think you cared anymore. You were wrong." Her hands were trembling now, knuckles pale around the edge of her chair. "So what now? You're just going to ruin my life and walk away." I almost smiled. No, I didn't ruin your life, I said. I just stopped protecting the lie you built. She looked down. That was the moment it cracked, the last wall she'd been hiding behind. Her shoulders dropped. Her lip trembled. The breath caught in her throat. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't smug. She was small. Please, she whispered. We can fix this. We can't. I'll do anything. You already did, I said. And you said you'd do it again. She covered her face with her hands. And I let her. No hand on the shoulder. No final hug. No fake sentiment. Just the quiet hum of what used to be us unraveling at the seams. After a while, she stood. I'll go. I nodded. She walked to the door. Paused. Turned. I loved you, she said. I believe you, I replied. Once. Then I closed the door behind her. No slam. No echo. Just silence. I made another cup of coffee, walked to the window, and watched her cross the street, slower now. Shoulders hunched. Eyes on the ground. A woman finally understanding what it meant to be alone. She came to dinner thinking she had the power. She left realizing she never understood who I really was. Not the pushover. Just the man who waited long enough to let her destroy herself. And now? Now I had everything I needed, including peace.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.